Hello, everybody. It's Heather and Deb with Skeptic and The Mystic. This is episode 50. Can you believe that, Deb?
I know. That's exciting.
It is exciting. It
We're
is
not a baby
exciting.
anymore.
No, I know. Now we need to get into teenagers and kick it out of the house. Start getting better. Hey, guess what? We have this child instead of hiding it. It's
Exactly.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So tonight, Deb and I are talking about unconditional love and is it attainable or unrealistic? And I have to say that when Deb was like, "Hey, let's talk about this," I was like, okay. I literally when you text, I was like, I don't really have anything to contribute to that because I suck at this.
It's a practice. And I think 99.9% of us are not truly good at it, right?
No.
This is why we're going to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that there's different stages of it too, possibly. Well, I guess, I mean, it's either unconditional or conditional. So I guess there's really not, but.
Well, there's different phases, I would say. And we can start with the baby steps of it's easier to practice on pets and babies because they don't demand much. They don't break our expectations very often.
Right.
So this is, I would say, one of the biggest reasons why we love with conditions is because we have expectations, particularly in the context of romantic love. We, between upbringing, movies, culture, you name it, everything that programs us, domesticates us, as Don Miguel Ruiz would talk about. We're going to talk about him a little bit. It trains us to think, if you love me, you would do X, or if you love me, you would change.
Right. I'm so guilty of this.
But I know, yes, many of us are, but we'll also talk about why it's not a lack of boundaries. Unconditional love does not mean having no boundaries, because sometimes the idea of, if you love me, you would do, sometimes is a factor of respecting somebody's boundaries. But in the context of unconditional love, perhaps it is, I love you so much, we must go separate ways because I cannot change you.
Right.
So, yeah.
I love you enough that I'm going to let you be you. And you being you just doesn't work in my world. And it's not that I don't love you. It just doesn't work in my world. So I'm going to let you go and let you not have to feel like you have to keep pretzeling yourself to be a part of my world.
Yes. Which is incredibly difficult. But I will say, in my own life, in my own experience, I have had, in the context of, I would say, romantic relationships, many of them that have come to an end in that way for me, because I do try to, at least, in my adult life, try to enter them as honestly as possible, so that when it comes to the point of, I want this, you want that, and the middle ground is too much of a compromise for both of us, therefore, I love you so much, go find your that, and I'm going to go find my this. So yeah, it's very easy to talk about, not as easy to practice, but it's like everything, it's practice, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's just first talk about what is unconditional love? If we were to explain unconditional love to an alien who just came to this earth and was I hear people talking about unconditional love, how would we describe that? How would you describe that?
I would describe it as truly loving someone exactly as they are. And so that includes yourself, which might be the hardest, but also that's the first step. And again, it is really evaluating where you are asking someone to be different so that you can love them. Then you don't love them, right? Yep. You don't truly, in that context, unconditionally love them. So it would be, I love you regardless of what you do, how you behave, I almost was going to say how you make me feel, but I do think you choose how you feel. I choose how I feel, right? But in the context of, let's say it's the romantic relationship piece, or pursuing a romantic dating, however far into this you are, I'm going to allow you to be you. I love you so much. I want you to be you. I want you to go and pursue your own passions. I want you to build a life that is outside of me because you are a separate being from me. And I want to love all of those choices that you make. And what that means is not pinning your happiness on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the biggest challenge, is when we first meet someone and we have that connection and it feels so magical and warm. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. This person's showering me with love. And all of that in the beginning phases of a relationship none of that is sustainable. So, excuse me, long term, it doesn't last that way. So when it shifts, oftentimes people start to feel that void. And then you're focusing on this concept of lack, right? And
Right.
in reality, if you follow Abraham Hicks or some of these law of attraction pieces, what that, or law of attraction experts, leaders, whatever we want to call them, that feeling that person brought to you is really just the reflection of your connection to, you can call it your inner being, you can call it source, God, whatever it is, but it's you being reflected as your true nature. Because early on in the relationship, oftentimes that person is only looking at your most wonderful qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they're reflecting all these beautiful things back to you, and you see yourself as this beautiful person because of the reflection you're getting. So you are still that beautiful person when you become very real and raw, and all of a sudden they start to see your so-called flaws or cracks. Can you still love yourself with all of those flaws and cracks, and therefore allow that person to love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
That's I think it gets misconstrued as loving someone no matter what, right?
Right. Yeah. And tolerating shitty behavior.
Tolerating shitty behavior is not unconditional love.
No.
Boundaries are self-loving for sure.
Yeah. And I want to go back to like the question of like unconditional love when you talked about like loving yourself. So I'm going to like just put a plug. So my book, Love Yourself, right, which is a 28-day journey to love the skin and life that you're in, is all about like learning to love your body. And women are so great at totally like just not accepting their body as it is, right? And but there's this weird thing of like, but if I accept my body as it is, this out of shape, unhealthy body, if I accept it how it is, then I'm just not going to be motivated to do anything, and then I'm just going to like stay like that. And the challenge is that when we do that, right, we just keep getting more of non-acceptance, right? And accepting, like loving yourself unconditionally is like, okay, I'm going to look at my body and see that my body is out of shape. My body is unhealthy. And I love like, and even if it's like, I can like that this is where it is because that's the reality. And I can't fight the reality. Reality is where it is. And I'm going to love it enough to create an environment where my body can thrive.
Yes,
So
that's what I was going to say too.
Right.
Love it so much that you want to take care of it.
Right.
That you want to treat it nicely,
Yeah. So I'm going to start moving. I'm going to start talking to my body in loving ways. I'm going to start putting stuff in my mouth that is real and from nature versus stuff from a box. And it's funny because I have a social media post. I can't remember when I was going to post it. I don't anyway, but it was like, you can love yourself and still desire to change. Like that they're, one and the same, like, because you can love yourself enough to say, hey, I'm not in a good place. Just like somebody who's a drug addict and like totally at rock bottom, the first act of love is saying, like, this is where I am right now and I'm not in a good place.
Yeah.
And I want to get better.
Yes.
Like, that is a very loving thing to do.
It is. And I will piggyback on that because the other piece of it is the attachment and non-attachment, right? So even in the case of body love, so self-love from a physical standpoint, when you can practice this takes practice. This is not something that happens overnight, but the concept of I love my body and therefore I would like to treat it well. You're doing that as a I love my body and I want to treat it well today. And when you're doing it with an attachment to, I want to change it so it looks a certain way, you're becoming attached to an outcome. And in that case, you still are focusing on it's not what I want right now.
Right.
So that was a little circular, and I think it's hard for people to get their head around, but it is not being attached to what your body looks like if it doesn't fit the mold.
Mm-hmm.
But how can it function? How does it feel to be in it? Can I love being present in this body today? And then the miraculous little side effect is it does change to the physical expression of it. It will start to look different, but you can't approach it from I'm doing this so I will look different.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough.
I remember when I was like at my rock bottom and, was thinking about all the different ways that I could take my life. And I, remember thinking, okay, I'm going to eliminate sugar from my diet just for a week, just to see how I feel. Right. That was the longest I could focus on, was a week at that point. Right. And it was just like, I'm going to do this experiment. And if after a week I don't feel better, then I could totally take my life, which I know people are like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I'm like, but when you're that rock bottom, you're like, who cares? Another week at this point, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to get rid of sugar. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I just couldn't think that way. Mm-hmm. Right. It was like survival, like right there that time. And I was like, I knew taking it out for one day, like not that much of a difference. Right. But a week, I was like, that'll give me enough information. And maybe there's something here. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this so that I could, this a year from now. And I'm like, there was no attachment, clearly, because I was like, well, if not, I'm just going to kill myself. Like, I had no,
right. Not that we're encouraging anybody to say, if it doesn't change in a week, do that. But yeah.
No, but I knew enough to know that, like, okay, in a week, I should notice a difference between how sugar makes me feel and not. And even at that point, I wasn't even that healthier. I don't know how I just knew that. I just knew it intuitively, like, right. I should know in a week, right? But I'm going to love myself enough and this is where things like, I wasn't depriving myself of sugar, right? I was loving myself enough to do something different, because what I was doing wasn't working for me at all.
Right. And showering yourself with that love, regardless of if you don't even make it through that first week, right? So there's the unconditional love. You might set out on a pursuit, and whether we're talking about self-love or love of a partner or friend, no human being is ever going to be perfect. So your unconditional love is even loving when you fuck up and loving other people when they fuck up, right? It's more about allowing them to be human, and not, when you can come to the place of your own unconditional love, then nobody else can fuck with you.
Right. Right.
What they do, I'm not saying like we're going to get to this like, oh my God, I'm so zen. And if somebody does something that's truly hurtful, of course it will still hurt for a moment, but you have a greater capacity for resilience to then not internalize that, not make that about you. Yeah. Right. And not pin your happiness on what that person does or does not do. That's the biggest thing.
I read this post the other day. Somebody put, and she was like, I'm beginning to think that the cause of all suffering is disconnection, right? It's disconnection from source, disconnection from ourselves. And as I was reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because, well, at least in my life, I can see that the truth of that, because I know when I talk about romantic stuff, when I suffered the most, right? It was, I kept wanting this person to satisfy me, to give me a life, to make me feel a certain way. And like when we broke up, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. Right. And then, in the past, however many years, I mean, I've been in the world of personal development for a long time, but like the past, I'd say, well, since 2016-ish, I'd say that's been the biggest shift for me when I started doing ayahuasca. Right. When I got at both at the same time, when I started doing energy work and I started doing ayahuasca, right, that shifted everything for me to get rid of all of the trapped emotions and traumas and beliefs that I had that had me thinking that I was terrible, I was unworthy, I was undeserving. Right. And since doing that, like I can see the shift in my romantic relationship. And like now, I know this story of my relationship, but like with the relationship that I've been in most recently, like our struggles have never been it had nothing to do with me. Like the
Mhm.
stuff that he chose to do that was not didn't work for my life. It wasn't like he's doing this to me.
He's not
It
doing
was
it to
just
you.
like,
No one's ever doing anything to you.
right, right. It
It's
was just
very
like he
hard concept to grasp because I know there's people that are going to be like, fuck you, this person did do that to me.
right, right,
But did they?
right. Yeah. And I could say, I mean, I was cheated on by literally my college boyfriend, the one that I got pregnant by, like literally cheated on me with a girl that was quadriplegic. And that was such a blow to my 19-year-old system. Like he did this to me. Now, the 47-year-old can look back and be like, he did it. Like he just did it, right?
You
Or I
did
could
it.
see any other boyfriend that cheated on me time and time again, and I kept taking them back because I kept wanting their love instead of me loving myself and being like, that's not acceptable behavior, right?
Mhm.
Like it was now I can see like they did it, but then it was like, how dare you do this to me? You cheated on me. No, they were unfaithful. They did it. That
Right.
period, right?
Well, I will say, even in the context of cheating, right? So open up a can of worms here, how people might see it. But I would say in a romantic relationship, if you're practicing unconditional love and one partner breaks the agreement that you have, so we're assuming you've got an agreement for monogamy and someone
Right.
cheats, that's just a signal that you need to have a conversation. You have different you aren't aligned in what you think is agreeable within your relationship. They
Right.
didn't do anything to you. They just feel differently about the agreement.
Right.
I mean, that I'm sure people are like, you're being insane, but it's true. Like that is an opportunity for you to have a conversation and decide. I
Yeah.
love you. I don't want to be in a partnership with someone who wants to have another partner. So we will go separate ways. Or I
Yeah.
love you and I can accept some level of, you know what I mean? Like there's a conversation to be had
Mhm.
about what that means for each of you, and then an agreement about what your relationship will be going forward. So maybe you're no longer partners, but you still love that person and your friends because you still value many things about that person, but you have different ideals about what a partnership means.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no reason to be angry. There's no reason to let it hurt you, right? Or to carry it around with resentment and anger and grudges.
Yeah.
You're only disservicing yourself.
And I will say that this is for me has been really challenging to grasp because in my most recent relationship, as you know, like, we've for now, broken up. And I say that because, people are like, okay, because we've broken up a couple times,
A
right? But
couple.
no, this is the third time. So it's not that
I'm
as many as
teasing.
thing, right? Um, but there hasn't been like weeping and gnashing of teeth as there has been in the past. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, I've never gotten angry. Like I've gotten angry, but not in the space of I can't see straight, right? Where before it was like
Mhm.
just overtaking. I mean, I remember the breakup before this was 5+ years ago or three, I forget one, like 2018, 17, 18, where I was like couldn't even see straight, right? And I was just like, my life is not worth living. Da, da, da. Like with this, is just like, no, he did this thing. It doesn't work in my life. We've talked about it
Mhm.
a bajillion times. He hasn't, he continues to do it. So it's just data. It's data that I've received. And but the weird thing about it though, Deb, is that it's because I haven't had those high, strong emotions. Like there's part of me that I'm like, did I love him? Maybe I just didn't love him.
Well, okay, let's
I
touch
know
on
that
that.
I do, but wait, let me finish. It's like I know that I totally do. Like, and we
Mhm.
still talk every day, and like I have such great love for him and like great care for him, right? But like I'm like these things are not working in my life, and I've
Right.
gathered the data, and I see the pattern, and it's not working. Could it change? Yes, everybody can change. I own a dog for crying out loud. Like if I could change, like anybody could change. But that love, like I have, it's like it's weird because the love that I have before it was lust and like immature.
Yes.
It wasn't love. What I had before was not love. Where I feel like this is now, it really is truly love.
Yes. so much love that you want him to be healthy. And if that means you need to extricate yourself from that relationship to get him to see that, then that's what you have to do, right? But
And
I
so much
do want
myself.
to, for yourself, right? I do want to go back to the idea of, I know it's not what you were saying, but the like, did I love him piece where you touched on that? Because again, this I think comes very much from how we're conditioned and what we see in movies. And we are trained to think that if there's no drama, there's no passion, there's no, oh my gosh, if you, the all that goes back to, if you loved me, you would X, you
Right.
would, whatever, you would do this grand thing, or it would be, you would be different somehow. You would be willing to change if you really loved me. All of that is bullshit. It's bullshit. I mean, you're allowed to want what you want in a partner, 100%. But if someone doesn't meet those things that you want, then they don't meet those things that you want.
Right.
You if you truly loved yourself, you wouldn't try to mold this other person. You would know that the right thing will show itself, right? You
Mm-hmm.
would trust in that.
Yeah.
Because if you flip that and you truly love yourself and someone's like, I love 75% of the things about you, but I would like this, and this to be different, and then we can be in a relationship. If you truly
Right.
loved yourself, you would be like, no, I'm not going to do that. So
Right.
why would you expect that from another? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just pulling up my phone. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but I was working with someone. Oh man, I'm not gonna be able to find it. Um, with someone, and she had recently been divorced, and it was a pretty surprising divorce, right?
Mhm.
And we were working on her heart wall, and she texted and she was like, "It's amazing. Like, I just don't even feel that anger towards him anymore. It's just like something that happened."
Mhm.
Right. And that's what I love about, like, if we, just kind of switch gears and talking about like how can we get to a place that we release attachment, right? Like, one of the biggest things is like we mentioned, is when you're connected to yourself, right? And fully truly connected to yourself and love yourself at such a deep level that you don't need anybody else to satisfy you.
Right.
Right? And one of the biggest things is that keeps us from that is being disconnected from ourselves. And then the biggest things keep us disconnected from ourselves is having this heart wall, is this wall of emotions around our heart that we think, oh, this is protecting me. And if it, like I put this guard up, then I'm never going to get this thing. But reality is we keep getting the things that we don't want, right? Because we have this wall around us. But
Mhm.
when
Because that
you
wall works both ways. You're not letting the good in either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when we can release that heart wall, like all of a sudden we're able to like take a deep breath in and see ourselves, right? And connect back to ourselves and see our value and our worth, which then like creates here's a great story. I had this woman who we were had worked on her heart wall, and it was right after her second divorce in being in a physically abusive relationship. I'm sure I probably told you this story before, but she, I always do like follow-up calls with people like 2 weeks after we release the heart wall just to see where things are. And we get on the phone and she was like, Heather, I think I've built up a lot more heart walls. And I was like, tell me what's going on. And she's like, well, I was dating this guy and he was doing this and this and this. And I was like, no, that's just not acceptable to me. And then she's like, and then at work, this was happening. And I was like, no, I'm not. That doesn't work for me. She's like, so I think I just have so many more heart walls. And I said, do you think it's are creating boundaries in your life for what's acceptable for you? And she was like, oh, that's what this is?
Exactly. That's such a great way to illustrate the point of self-love and boundaries still fit within this framework of unconditional love. Very much so. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that story. And so, you know, heart wall for me, I feel like is one of the first things. Like if you really are struggling with loving yourself, like getting your heart wall cleared is, and I
Yes.
know it sounds so silly, but it's literally like, people all the time, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter. I feel so much freer. I feel so much more connected to myself. And when you feel
Mhm.
so much more connected to yourself, you just don't tolerate crappy stuff.
You don't tolerate crappy stuff, and you are
And yourself and others.
exactly. So you can be so much more you, who you are. And when you are shining your fullest authentic self, you're automatically more attractive to other people of all sorts. I'm not even just saying you're going to be like, ooh, I'm so sexy, but like people want to be around authentic people.
Yeah.
And then you will find that you find more of your people, you find more of your talents. Your hair is like,
I have like 80s hair. Sorry.
woo!
I'm
Yeah.
distracted by
Yeah,
my
but
hair.
I want to tap more on like this book, Mastery of Love, Don Miguel Ruiz, because I love the concepts that there's two that have stood out. I haven't read this book in a long time, so I just pulled it back out. We were talking about before we got on about how often we give books away, and like I'm positive this is a new copy because this should be very tattered. But in any case, he has two concepts that I really, really love and I think are very, very good for remembering how to practice unconditional love and unconditional self-love. But he has one story in here. I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'm going to paraphrase it, where he talks about like the man who didn't believe in love, I think is how, or it's the man or woman. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but you know, these two older people who just kind of were like, oh, I think it's a man who didn't believe in love. And he's walking in the park one day or whatever. And he sees this woman, she's sitting on a bench, and she's a widower and she's crying. And anyway, long story short, they begin to talk, and all of a sudden they like, you know, they go to have lunch together and they form a relationship, and then they realize like he starts to soften and think, well, maybe love is like real. Maybe I do love this woman, and she's falling in love with him because she lost her partner. Anyway, it continues on, and then they realize that they're both quite in love with each other, and they want to, you know, have a real relationship, we'll say. And again, I'm totally butchering the story, but this is the gist of it. Is he comes to her one day with this glass globe and is basically like, this is all of my love for you, and I want to give this to you as a token, and I'd love for you to hold this token of my love. This showcases everything that I feel for you. And she takes it and she drops it and it breaks, because he handed her all of the symbol of his love. And then when she breaks it, their relationship falls apart. So there's a metaphor there where like, don't hand over your love to somebody else because they might drop it.
Right. They will. They will drop it.
It's too much pressure for the other person. And I remember even, I mean, I can talk personally. My daughter's dad would never in a million years watch this, I hope. But anyway, when he and I were splitting up, and this is, you know, we've been divorced for 10 years. So I think he has evolved as a human as well since then. But we had many fights where he truly did believe it was my job to make him happy. He wanted me to be different because that's what partners do, is they're responsible for making each other happy. Right. And I 100% disagreed with that notion. Right. That it was not my job to make any other person in this world happy, including my own child. It's not my job. Like, you have to find it within yourself. And so there, you know, there was clearly, as I spoke about before, a misalignment in that relationship. And we ultimately clearly decided we were not the right people for each other. We had to go different ways because we did not see the same way on many issues, but that's one of them. So that leads into the other piece that's in the Mastery of Love that I think is such a beautiful metaphor, is he talks about being the keeper of your own magic kitchen. And so if there was a kitchen, again, I should have reread these chapters before we got on, but if you had a kitchen in your home that made the greatest pizza ever, right? Like, you could make the most perfect pizza in your magic kitchen, and it could contain all of the ingredients and all of the nutrients and everything that you would need to nourish your body. Why would you go elsewhere to have pizza? Right? You would just get your pizza from your own magic kitchen. I'm completely killing the story, because there is a whole piece about where you go, and like, if somebody else comes to you and like, I have this great pizza, but you have to come over here to get it, and you must leave your own magic kitchen and never go back to that, you would be like, screw you, I've got this perfect kitchen right here. Why would I go elsewhere? Why would I have to abandon that to go have your pizza? I'll just take my own pizza. Thank you. So he has this whole thing about being the keeper of your own magic kitchen. And that just means like those feelings of love, all of this feeling that you're seeking, that you think resides in other people, it's yours. It's within you. And you have the ability to manufacture it really anytime that you want.
And that's what I think a lot of us miss. I mean, I did for most of my life. is thinking that, oh, if I am with this person, then I'll feel this certain way. And I realized that I have to do the work so that I can feel and generate that no matter what. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that when you're with somebody, you don't feel certain feelings. Like, I mean, as silly as it sounds, like unconditional love, like, sweet little Charlie's laying there on the bed.
Animals are the best way to start that practice, for
Right.
sure.
But I know that, like, Charlie makes me happy. Like, having Charlie in my life makes me happy, and in a different level of happiness that I have never experienced before. Right. So am I using something outside of me to create that happiness? Yes.
Yes.
And I also know that, once Charlie decides to leave me in his body, we've had conversations and I've asked him to come back in a different body because I just adore him to pieces. But I know that the work for me is, when he's no longer here, to know that all of the things that he is, right? He's just pure love and joy. I mean, he's the sweetest little pup in the world. That, like, that's in me too. And I'm only seeing that in him because that's what I am.
Because it's within you. Exactly. Right. It's just mirror reflecting back. And if his little body leaves the planet, the mirror is not gone, right? Like, you still have him, and there are other ways to feel that. And I'm not saying, I'm freaking single, and yes, I would love to have that person that really is like there for me, 100%. But I also have that in some great friendships, and I have that. There are people in my life that I will 100% say I love unconditionally, and that is because what they do does not take away from my happiness. It might add to it sometimes. Like, I love, sharing joy with other people. But if somebody doesn't text me back or can't say yes to certain plans that I want to do, does that mean that they don't love me and I don't love them? No. Does that mean I don't have love in my life now? No.
Right. Yeah.
So,
okay. So let's just talk about, just to wrap this up, like, it's certain that tools that people can use to get to this point. So reading the book is Mastery of, he's got a couple of them. Mastery of Love.
Mastery of Love. Read anything by Don Miguel Ruiz. The 4 Agreements, Mastery of Love, Mastery of Self. The 5th Agreement is his son. I have so many books by them. Just anything he's written will help you with this concept.
Another one I would suggest, I'm going to suggest get my book, Love Yourself. And in February, we do I have a Facebook group where we will go through the book. I'm going to put in the comments, I'm going to put a link to where you can join the experience this year. And this is, I can't talk into this. It's where you can literally take the month, and it's literally not even 5 minutes a day, right? To go through this process to really get in touch with your body and to start loving it. Because if we, say, oh, I love everybody else, but we don't love the own vessel that we're in, it is really challenging to have that level of love. But then another book that's really great to help you to be able to start this process of unconditional love is a book by a woman named Byron Katie. And the book is called Loving What Is. And I highly recommend this book, listening to it on Audible, or however you can listen to a book instead of reading it, because there's a lot of transcripts of conversations that she has with people. And if you're like myself, I read it through my lens and through my tone. And when I heard it, I was like, this woman's a bitch. And because I was a bitch, right? But when you hear her, you're like, oh my gosh, she's just the sweetest, kindest little, woman. So I definitely recommend listening to it. And then the book will shift and rock your world, but it definitely will help, to see, like, okay, is it really true? Is it really true that they shouldn't have done this, or they should have done this? The book will really change things. Right?
Yes. Is it really true? That's, and I think she has the other one called The Work that she goes in some of that, or is that part of the same book?
Part of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She also has a book called A Mind at Home with Itself. Yes. And that's also, she has other books too, but so then also get your heart wall cleared, because it's really challenging to love everything around you when you're hidden behind this wall. Yeah. And another thing that's helpful is what's called shared heart walls. Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody and and in a relationship in a way that the relationship isn't fractured, you're no longer together, but you can't seem to break away from that person, you could have a shared heart wall like that you're both hiding behind. And in order for you to like separate yourself from that, because the opposite of love is hate, right? And you want to be able to place being like what's the word I'm looking for? To be
I would
neutral.
say, yeah, equanimity. Yeah.
Right. Because when you're hating someone, you're still in a really strong energy that's not helping. So when you can just be like, neutral, and it's like, okay, there's my ex, right? And that's it. So getting rid of that shared heart wall will help to unbreak the ties that are keeping you together. And on that note too, is sometimes we can have negative cords between us. Like Deb and I have an energetic cord between us. We have a connection, right? We work together, we're friends. And so there's right now a positive energetic cord, right? And we have that with all people we're with. But when we're in romantic relationship with people and something happens, you become angry with them, that cord can go negative. And so if you have that negative energy flowing between the two of you, no bueno, right? So
I think those are even more intense in someone that you have had sex with, right? If you've had that intimate relationship with that person, those cords are a little more entangled, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So cutting those cords makes it easier for you to just let go and not like be in a place of like, oh, like, so attached, like they have to change. They have to, be this person for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there could be just doing energy work specifically on specific beliefs, right? Of like, I need them to be happy, or, the memory, like right now, one of my clients, we're working on different memories that she's had with people that she's dated. And she's experienced some really hard stuff with some of her former partners, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, right? And we're working on clearing out the memories so that when she thinks of them, she doesn't have an energetic charge. She's not like, oh my gosh, I hate them. She's just like, she thinks of it and it's like, oh, that was something that happened.
Yeah.
Right? And they say wisdom is like, having a memory without any energetic charge. Right?
I haven't heard that one before, but yeah, I would add to it, any movement practice really, but yoga in particular. I mean, obviously I'm a yoga teacher, so I'm a little biased in that regard, but if you really dig into the practices of yoga and even reading, some of this is in teachings of the Buddha or teachings of Patanjali, who is one of the way back lineage of yoga people. But the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali have 4 arms that really kind of help with this practice of unconditional love for all people. So it starts with the loving kindness. So working on a loving kindness meditation, and this would be, really sending kindness to all people. But people, when you notice you're triggered by feelings of envy or jealousy, that's good information for you. So showing you something that you probably want in your life, but you can send loving kindness and be happy for others, right? It's this idea of, can you look at somebody who has something you want and be genuinely happy that they have it? Or are you like, well, she probably just got it because her dad's rich, or, whatever stories that you're telling yourself or what you're saying. And then having compassion for others is the flip side of that. So when people are mean to you, or you would deem their actions hurtful, have some compassion and try to see from their lens, why are they doing what they're doing? And good chance it has zero to do with you. It never does have anything to do with you. It's all about them. Practicing joy, just joy. That would be, have pets, but the joy of moving your body, right? So like, this is where yoga helps you tap into all of these systems somatically, like you feel it in your body, and moving some of these in conjunction with energy work even better, because moving some of this stuck stuff, like, it gets lodged in our joints, lodged in our hips. And when we can move our body in new, different, interesting ways, we can dislodge some of that. And then the other piece you touched on it is the equanimity. So yoga really works a lot in that balance between effort and ease, right? So when you're physically trying to find balance in your body, let's say you're holding tree pose, or you're balancing, you're not just working body. You're working so much on what's going on in your thought patterns and where is your energy right now. So it expands bigger than that physical practice. But if you don't have a physical practice and You're looking at either trying to cultivate some physical self-love, some body love, or just, bring some movement into your life. Whether
One,
it's just
yeah.
walking,
Well,
anything.
yeah, because like emotion is energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're feeling stagnant emotions, right? Like depressed, sadness, despair, forlorn, right? That's a stagnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But here's something, like, especially if you're a woman, I invite you to go find some space, whether it's in a hallway, go outside, out in your backyard. If you're like me and live in the city, down the hallway of your apartment complex or something, and go skip down the hallway. See, you can't even think of like skipping, right? Without even laughing, right?
I'm
It's
laughing because I was on a walk with my daughter the other night, and I just started skipping down the street just because she thinks it's embarrassing.
huh? Yeah.
And I was laughing at myself the whole time. And the more she was like, "Oh my God, stop it!" Like the more I was scared.
It's so much fun. Like, it's such a, like, playful feminine energy, right? And you skip and it's like, it does help to move that stagnant energy along.
Wasn't there a trend a few years ago, the woman that did like the prancer size?
Prancer, oh my gosh, that woman was unreal. I should see what she's up to. If y'all haven't seen her, you need to check out, just
But
Google
she
Prancer.
is an embodiment of joy, right? Like she looked 100% ridiculous, but you have to love people that are like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I have to send you, there's this woman that I follow on Instagram. When next time she pops up on my thing, I forget her name, but she is an older woman and she does it's just movement and she is the cutest little thing. And every time I see her in her little, like, she's doing these little jazzercise things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this woman so much. So cute. Movement, yeah, anything to make you laugh. I was telling Deb earlier today, I went sledding for the first time in probably like 20 years. I literally was on like cardboard and plastic, like total ghetto. And I was like, go down the hill and then run back up again and go down the hill. And I was like, this is so much fun, right? It just movement brings joy. It's energy in motion, and you get to choose what motion your energy takes. Is it a stagnant motion or is it a fun, like uplifting movement? And that you can't, it's hard to do that and stay in a state of like, blah energy.
Right.
Um, so, and a couple other things like sound healing, like Deb talks about stuff that she does, like sound is frequency, and our frequency, right, is as woo as it sounds. Like if our frequency is at a low space, right, pay attention to what you're listening to, what kind of music you're listening to, what words are you hearing, or do you have the TV with the news on all the time? That is the
Oh,
lowest frequency, right? So put on, like, you can go like Spotify, iTunes. I mean, I'm always like, I go to bed to like, meditative type music that has a
I
high
do too.
frequency.
I never say it right. Solfeggio or however you say it, solfeggio, whatever
Yes.
those frequencies, I put those on a lot at night too.
Yeah.
I love that you touched on that. So yeah. I mean, pay attention to what you're consuming, and that doesn't just mean food. Is
Right.
it loving? Like you said, I don't even I watch the news like once a week. I put on like Al Jazeera just because I don't want to be a total ostrich, but I watch one round and I'm like, and I'm done.
Right.
Like I really am careful about that stuff is getting digested into your nervous system. And for me, it doesn't feel like a loving energy that I want to invite in. So
Right.
my unconditional love for myself is I am a little bit ostrichy, is that a word, about world news because I don't want it in my life. I don't want to
Right.
focus on it.
I will tell you. So I'm not one. I don't own a TV. I have a projector that I connect my computer up with, and I put movies and stuff that I say. So I don't watch that much. I watch This Is Us. I was watching Grey's Anatomy, but that's just getting on my nerves lately. I'm trying to think what else
Never
I
watch that
watched. Right.
show. Yeah.
But one of the things I just got, this has nothing to do with any of this, but I will tell you because this show is so good. I just started watching this weekend and got sucked into Ted Lasso. Have you heard of this
People
show?
talk about it. It's on Apple TV though, right?
So freaking good. Yes, it is. It's
I
so
think
good.
I had Apple TV because every time you buy an Apple device, they're like free year. But I
Right.
think I've hit all of my. I don't think I've. I mean, yeah, I don't know that I've hit another year of free Apple TV, and I
Well,
did not pay for it.
I think I can invite like 6 people to my membership or something like that, but if you wanna, I'm telling you, this show is so good, but when you think about, like, unconditional love and frequency, like, this guy, like, is, if you don't know the premise of the show, go Google it, because I know you gotta go, Deb, but, like, go Google it. It is such a good show, but this main character, Ted Lasso, he embodies this, like, unconditional love and seeing people for beyond who they show up as, and not tolerating, he doesn't tolerate crappy behavior, but he also, calls people to a greater level of themselves in such a
Okay.
kind, loving way. And that they're like, wait a minute, what did you just do to me? But, and even in his personal relationship, he had this, like, oh my gosh, like, I love her and I want her to be happy. And so oh, it's so good. It's so good. I'm so surprised.
Now you're the first person that's framed it to me that way, and now I'm like, I really want to watch it. I'll have
It
to
is
see if
so,
maybe I still have Apple TV for a minute. I don't know. I'll have to look.
well, let me know if not, and I'll figure it
Okay.
out. Because it really, I literally watched all of season 1 on Saturday, and I haven't gotten through season 2 yet, but it really is so good. It's
That's
so,
funny. My one that I just started binging is freaking Emily in Paris, which is so silly, but like it is actually another one where like the girl kind of just owns who she is and doesn't care when people like, I know these are fictional characters, but like she gets to Paris and people are fucking mean to her at first, and she's just like, I'm gonna be me. Like, it's
Yep.
kind of cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how, like, with Ted Lasso too. Like, he,
Yeah.
like, his, all these people are against him, and he's just like, "Huh, let's go prove him wrong." Like, like, no, he just doesn't take it personally at all.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't think about this until, like, just now as we were talking about it, but I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you just can't help but love his character." And
Yeah.
at first you're like, "You're so annoying, but I can't not like you." Like, it just can't.
Well, it's
But
a beautiful place to wrap it up, because if
yes.
this is anything anyone's struggling with, find unconditional love for a fictional character and start there.
Yeah. Yep. Get your house all cleaned. Join the Love Yourself experience. We're going to be starting February 1st. Hook up with Deb for some sound healing. Deb does personalized meditations. So
Yes.
that
And
is
heart wall clearings. I'm actually dabbling into getting Reiki trained too this coming weekend.
nice.
So expanding my horizons in many ways here.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay. We will talk to y'all later. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.